So this is a video I've been thinking about doing for a little while. Basically, we are here. This world's been active for a few years. We're in the late game now. So obviously, full netherite, almost full netherite. But at this point, there's not much else to do in the world apart from build. So that's what we've been doing. We've been building a city, essentially. And what I wanted to do is show how I've been doing some of my builds recently, because I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty fun. But also just to document, because I want to see a before and after in progress compilation of the whole thing. So essentially right now we're building a neighborhood, which I'm on my way to, but you'll see some of the builds that we've done already. And this whole thing has been on survival. The whole point is to make these builds in survival. So that's what we're doing. So here's one that's currently under construction. But in order for it to be a modern build, we actually have a whole infrastructure here. Okay? So we have a power grid. The transmission power lines come in here into the substation. You know, in realistic terms, this does absolutely nothing. But for the aesthetic, it looks cool. This, however, does. So the power comes in, gets converted to a redstone signal, and it actually does go under the roads that we've built. And so under this road, about 2 or 3 blocks down, is a long line of redstone and redstone repeaters that will connect to the neighborhood. But that's not the only thing. Of course, like any other city, we've got a whole infrastructure for water supply. So it's just the one water supply. If we wanted to be really extra, we could have 2. One for water supply and another for wastewater. But we're in Minecraft. We don't need to do that. Strictly speaking, we don't need to do any of this, but it's fun. And so the whole idea, I'll just show this building as an example, is we're building buildings as if they were real buildings with a frame, with insulation, and with functioning lighting, power supply. So this is just an example of an office building here. And notice that a button will actually toggle them on and off. So we'll get into how that works. But the other thing is that if the connection of this building, the redstone connection with this building, is severed with the substation, then even if you click those buttons, the lights aren't going to turn on. That's the whole idea of an infrastructure. So that's going to be what we're doing. What I want this video to be, or maybe it'll be a few videos, I'm not sure, is just the process that goes through into just one of these houses. So here we are in the neighborhood. And what I think we're just going to rebuild this house on a different lot, because I more or less have the floor plan already established. But this house is going to be, this is kind of our model house here. All right, so I'll show you from the front. Just a nice sort of normal but nice looking 3-story, 2-story with a basement suburban house with a nice front yard and a garage, and with this building, the whole thing as well, lights that toggle on and off. And just like before, if this house is severed from, here's the water connection. But if this house is severed from the redstone power connection, here's the main breaker, all the lights go off, except for the stair lights. And even if we try to turn these on, the power's out because the main breaker's off. So basically, what we're going to start with this is we're going to build the same house on a different lot and show you from start to finish how this kind of a build even starts. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set up here. And we're going to build this house on this lot, I think, right here. So this is a suburban lot. It's about 8 chunks, 4 deep and 2 wide. This lot size is actually just a little bit bigger than that lot size because this lot is not on a corner. So the way that I figured that out is, if you just toggle the chunk borders, you can see that this is exactly nearly 2 wide, 4 chunks deep. And so that's what we're going to be working on. And you can see the lot has been overgrown a little bit. But at least for this first part, we're just going to prepare the lot, get it ready, put down the shape, the floor plan, and we're gonna dig it out, actually put in a foundation, and do all the extra stuff that structurally isn't necessary, but is part of the fun, because when you're building in the late game, what's stopping you? Let's make this a little more interesting. And because of the amount of planning it takes, especially with the redstone wiring, it can be an engaging activity because you're trying to balance aesthetic with function, and that does take a little bit of planning. So that's why I'm going to rebuild this house, is because I've already done it. I have an idea of the floor plan, and it covers the whole thing, basement, second story, and that's what we're going to do. So first, let's just take a look at this lot. We're going to clear it out. So let's start that. Alright, that didn't take too long. So we've got rid of the trees and the undergrowth. Got a little bit of enderman erosion to take care of. And we'll keep the flowers because they can be useful. Just grab these real quick. Okay, so here we are. Here's our lot that's been fully cleared of all growth. As you can see, this is lot 27. And before we do anything else, we're going to use the wood from the trees that we got and set up our little depot here. And let's bring the bed down too, why don't we? Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do now is we actually got to put down the footprint of our house. And to do that, I believe I should have a floor plan here, the Eagle floor plan as it's called. So I'll have that on hand, but also I think we gotta actually put on our builder go. So we've got our construction vest, protection 4, feather falling, very important, and just a gold helmet. I had a leather one, a yellow one. That's probably one of my dozen other houses. But here we are. Got everything that we need. Okay. So obviously something that you're going to want if you do a build like this is, if you don't already, efficiency 4 and then breaking on all of your tools, because there's gonna be a lot of excavation, especially if you're doing a basement like what we're gonna be doing. So I just want to get rid of this. So early on, we're going to start planning how far back we want the house to be, how much backyard we want there to be. This lot's a little weird because of the road having to come down to it. So I think there's probably, we're either going to want to have very little front yard and a lot of backyard, or very little backyard and more front yard, which I'm kind of leaning towards that, just because it's going to be weird having your front door coming out your front door and just seeing this. And if the front yard's big enough, we can still have a good garden and things like that. So let's take a look at the floor plan. On the exterior perimeter, this is where we're going to do the side. So this will be the right side. This is the left side. If we do the same, I want to mirror it. Yeah. Okay. I think we'll do it the same way because our redstone connection's on this side, and it's the side I have it on that one. So, like I said, there's already a lot of planning. So it looks like 34 meters for the one side, and we could build after that point. Okay. So we're not going to have much of a backyard. Because we do have a main road here. But we'll probably want something of a front yard. Let's see. I think we'll just leave about 5 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There. And then we'll do this 34. Okay, so this is 34, and even because this hill takes up so much, that still leaves very little in the way of a front yard, so I will want to move it back and sacrifice the backyard entirely, I think. So that was 6 added, so I'll take 6 off this end. There we go. Okay, so there's one side. Then we'll move 17 for the front side of the garage. 1, 2. And then 8 for the garage side. Seven for the front door. I need to double check if that's 7 including the corner or not. I want to make sure we build this out right. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was not counting the inside corner, so we gotta add one more. Okay. And actually, we might want to shift this over. Or we have some side yard. Actually, the side yard would probably be kind of fun since we don't have a backyard either. So let's actually leave it like that. And then just make sure our measurements are right. It should be 27. Perfect. Okay, so this is the footprint of the house. Since I already have the floor plan, I'm just gonna go and start digging it out because I didn't have to design anything. But if I were doing this, if I were doing a build for the first time, I would put down a little bit more of a floor plan. And the way I would do that is, for example, with the garage, I would do this. Or if this were any other room, I would do something like this. And the reason being is that since we're doing a modern build, most of the walls are going to be 3 blocks thick because we'll have an exterior layer that's visible from the outside, an interior layer, which will be the interior walls of each room, and then between them are going to be the studs or the redstone wiring that we need. So that's what I did when I was making that for the first time. I laid out all the rooms. You would probably want to point out where you want your windows and things like that. So, but since we already have the floor plan, I'm not going to do that here. And instead, we're just going to go into the excavation and start digging this out. And we're going to dig 8 blocks deep. I'll explain why as we get to that point. But for now, let's just go ahead and start digging. So we're going to dig 8 blocks down because we need to make sure that we've got enough room for wiring, for the foundation, and also for that there's enough actual space to be walking around. So 0, this is the level of the ground from the outside. So there's going to be lights in the ceiling, 4 levels, 4 layers of actual space. Each floor is going to have an interior height of 4 blocks. And you got the flooring and then our actual foundation. So we're going to dig out these 8 blocks deep, and then we'll actually start with after that actually putting down the foundation and everything. So that's why it's good now if you've got your efficiency tools. We're going to be digging out a lot, so just hold tight and we'll start this this excavation. Obviously, digging out so much can be pretty time consuming and can be kind of monotonous work at times, so I'm usually listening to a podcast or some long form video podcast on YouTube while I do this. But as you can see, we've got 4.5 layers down, and we've already got a bunch of stuff to work with and still got more to go. So we'll keep doing that. The other thing I wanted to mention is definitely want to have silk touch on your pickaxe for the stone, because stone is very useful in the late game for the stone bricks, among other things. So definitely want to have that. You probably want to have a silk touch shovel as well for gravel, because we're going to be using quite a bit of gravel for these builds as well. So should have that on hand too. And lots of gravel and lots of sand, and we'll get to that point once this is done being dug out. So we got down to our 6 levels, and turns out that the chasm is actually only a very small part, so we're just going to lower this down, at least for this lot, down to here as normal, and then we'll keep everything above ground as normal. This will be a little bit more complicated when we start building the lot over. We'll have to lower the limit down again once we get to that, or else just have those lots be at a higher plane than the normal. But this is how deep the chasm was before it got filled in even that deep. So there has been quite an extensive amount of terraforming that went into preparing these lots for building, but the lower limit just wasn't put down low enough. I think we did that before I established the sort of building code, what I want for these builds, as far as the 8 deep. But going forward, that shouldn't be a problem. We've just got these 2 more layers to go, and we'll go to the next step. So down to level 8, we found some gravel, so we're definitely going to want to grab this. But the last thing also is some more gravel there. Get any last ores or things that might be visible, and then we'll close that off, and then we'll be ready for the next part. Alright, so the excavation is now complete. We've dug down 8 deep, extracted any gravel and ores that were desirable. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lay the foundation and the retaining walls to make sure that the ground doesn't come piling in. So to do that first, we're going to need some of the stone that we got, and we are going to use a lot of stone bricks. We're going to use stone bricks for the retaining wall. And also, what we're going to be using is light gray dye for the concrete. And the concrete's going to be the bottom level, the foundation of our building. So, easy enough to get. Light gray dye from certain flowers. If you have a flower farm, you can do that. Or if you've got a mob grinder, skeleton mob grinder, white dye is super easy, and then you just need I used all the but we're going to use a lot. The point is we're going to use a lot of concrete. Let me just get some more dyes. Excellent. And then we're going to make some concrete. And we're going to use quite a bit of it, actually. And whatever's not left, we will use for our other builds, of course. Okay. So let's begin. We're going to have to remove this. Just do one layer, one perimeter layer for now. Our stone brick. And now we can actually lay the foundation. And that's what we're just going to put. And here we are. Voila. And now the most satisfying part of the whole thing. Yeah. I use light gray concrete because it's the hue that looks the most like cement concrete. Of that nice and smooth texture. Yeah, look at that. One solid foundation. So the only thing left to do is, oh, I missed a spot, is the retaining wall. So we're just going to cover the rest of these walls with stone brick. And then once that's done, we can actually get to framing. Okay, so actually I lied. Before we actually finish the retaining walls, we want to make sure that we have the connections for water and power put in before we put the walls in. So the way that this is going to work is we've got our redstone power connection here, and that's going to come down to the basement out of this wall, and we're going to have our main junction box there, and then the water will come out of this wall. Okay, the plans have been revamped, so now we know what we're going to be doing. So we got sticky piston, some cut copper and chiseled copper, redstone levers, and some cobblestones, and we can actually make these connections. So, actually, there is one thing I do want. Okay, so for the power connect, this will be a placeholder for the interior wall. So we'll have a wall like this, and on the fourth one inside, 1, 2, 3, 4, this one, is where we're going to put our main breaker box, like so. Put the lever down, put our piston here, and our chiseled copper block there. And that's how it's going to work. So now we just need to connect the redstone to our spot here. So let's just dig out a spot here. See how we want to connect this. For the purposes of building, and safety, I want to surround the redstone wire with copper blocks. You go down one more. Just to keep the redstone safe from creeper explosions, things like that. And we're actually going to want to keep this connection a little bit more this way so there's enough room for the water connection to flow. So we need to have a repeater here, redstone here, so we can actually, let's do it this from this side. We can fill all this in later. Perfect. Okay, so let's just dig this out. So the redstone goes down here. Okay. Let's see if this initial plan works. Great. And just for consistency, we're going to make this an actual tube. Just because I like the idea of it being surrounded and fully protected. Obviously, we're going to need quite a few repeaters. So, another reason to have a bunch of stone on hand. Should be enough for now. There we go. And so the repeater will power this block and then complete the circuit here once it's engaged, like so. And then from here, the redstone will run through the whole rest of the house. So now we're just going to close up this connection and then we'll do the water next. And copper is such a ubiquitous ore that you have more than you need to do with, which is why I don't mind using it for this. And especially using the stone cutter, you multiply each block by 4 every time you use this. So finally I used to put all that copper to use, and here we are. Now all you got left to do is cover up the whole thing. Excellent. So now for the water connection, our interior wall, I think, will be here. No. Be here. Oops. right interior limit 3 meters above the flooring. Right interior limit will be here. But will be there. I think is where we want it. Which means that our actual flow will be coming out of this hole right here. That looks about right to me. I think what we want to do, just to distinguish the water from the water pipes from buildings, is cobblestone. So this is what it's going to look like eventually. That. And the water will empty out into here. So let's just dig out. Make sure that we're at the right coordinates for everything. Minus 746. Okay, so the floodplain, or the water flow level's lower than the other one, so we're going to have to just dig this a bit lower. We're just going to put our piston like that, so that when this is engaged, it blocks it off. And that is that. So now just gotta fill the water main, finish with the cobblestone, and then our water connection is good as well. So let's just do that real quick. go. And voila. So eventually we'll actually build a little reservoir for it. But now all that we have left to do is we can actually finish the retaining wall. So let's go and do that now. So it occurs to me we actually need to extend this out one more, because this redstone here is supposed to be out one more in the layer with the studs. So let's just move this out. There we go. Let's have that out there for now. So this should work in theory. We can always fix it later. But for now, let's just finish the wall for it. And here we are. Retaining wall finished, foundation finished, utilities connections. The very base level of our house is now finished, which means that for the next step we can do the framing, which we'll get to at another point, I think. I think this is enough. We can stop here and we can do the framing next, which will be fun. So I guess keep your eyes out for that. It'll be good. Alright. That's all.